Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, the WhistleBlower Channel. You already know what we do on this channel. We talk about giving you the necessary information that is needed for you to be able to travel abroad, either to go study or to work. Whatever it is, whatever reason it is that you really want to move from your country abroad, we'll talk about it on this channel. But today, I'm not really here to talk about moving to another country whatsoever. I'm here to talk about the recent news from Canada about the government making changes in immigration, the student permits, the spousal work permits, and the postgraduate work permits for those who are coming to study in Canada. So, however, before touching on that, ever since the government made the announcement, universities, colleges are already they've started groaning and talking about the ripple effect of this decision that the government has made. So before going on, I actually want you guys to watch this video.
From insolvency to bankruptcy and deep budget cuts, universities across the country say they are facing financial turmoil. Some of the universities struggling. Well, in Ontario, there's York, Queen's, Guelph, and Western. For more on what's happening, we're joined this morning by Steve Orsini. He's president and CEO of the Council of Ontario Universities. It's a lobby group representing higher learning in the province. Welcome to your morning.
Well, thank you.
There are a number of factors that contribute to universities operating year over year at deficits that are in the tens of millions. What specifically are they struggling with?
Well, if you look at the current financial situation of Ontario universities, it's been years of declining real per student operating grants. So that's been eroding over the years. The government had cut tuition by 10% and had frozen it for 5 years. That's reduced the value of tuition by 25%. And then you have higher costs in providing supports and services for students. So as a result of declining revenue, we have at least 10 universities in Ontario reporting or forecasting operating deficits totaling $175 million this year, growing to $273 million next year.
Some universities we know have made up financial gaps that you're pointing out by increasing tuition for foreign students. And in some cases, that's 4 times what Canadian students pay. The increase in foreign student enrollment has certainly helped some of the schools. But now the federal government is beginning to crack down on study permits. So how will these federal changes affect universities?
Well, we think a cap, just across the board cap, could have unintended consequences. We would look to the federal government to focus on good performers, reward good players in the system. If they're worried about some institutions that aren't providing the supports, they should focus on those and not jeopardize those who are providing housing, those that are providing wraparound services. Universities have been very responsible in how they enroll international students. For example, we have a housing guarantee for students coming to an Ontario university. And that's why the growth rate for international students for Ontario University has flatlined over the last 2 years because of the housing challenges. We can't bring them in and support them. We can't grow the enrollment. Universities are now planning to build about 11,000 new housing spaces to the 72,000 we have now over the next 5 to 6 years. But if the government just caps it overall, you could impact the good performers when you really want to go after the bad performers. So they need a smarter policy than just a blunt cap.
This issue of running on deficits is an issue for universities across the country, although the stats show that Ontario universities are particularly affected. There are 10 of the province's 23 publicly funded schools projecting budget deficits, as you mentioned, of $273 million in this next calendar year. So your group is asking the Ontario government to lift a tuition freeze. But the government says they're not going to agree to that until universities also do their part and cut costs in order to, as they said, run as efficiently as possible. Salaries for tenured professors is one of the issues that comes up. What are the Council of Ontario University members doing to reduce deficit and cut costs?
Well, we agree that everyone has to come to the table. Universities have to do their part. And in last December, we released a comprehensive report on what universities are doing to become more efficient. We talked about all the things we've been doing to date: group purchasing, shared services, belt tightening. We also laid out strategies going forward to really continue to drive innovation and smart delivery of our programs and services. The challenge is the gap's too big to close by efficiencies alone. So we're prepared to do our part. And the government's own expert panel that they appointed and reported back in November looked at efficiencies of Ontario universities. And they came to the conclusion, when you look at total salaries and benefits in Ontario universities per student, we're among the most efficient in the country, and that we've managed our costs well. Now, they go on to say there's more we can do, and we are prepared and are doing it. But the gap is too big. And what we're calling on now is to the province to implement the panel that they've struck, that they reported on, that calls for a boost in operating grants and the end to the tuition freeze while protecting low-income students.
It's a fascinating topic of conversation. It is one that is continued to be looked at, and we'll have to leave it there for now. Steve, thanks so much.
So now that you've seen the video, let's now come and talk about what the Canadian government has done and how it actually affects everybody, those who are yet to move to Canada. So the government has said, if you come here to study a 1 or 2 year program, you're not going to get a postgraduate work permit. You cannot come with your spouse if you are not studying medicine, law, or you are coming for a master's or PhD program. They are not going to allow your spouse or your family to come with you. Then again, I think another thing that was said is that those who actually, because there are some schools that are actually private career colleges, they have partnership with the public colleges. So they run some programs together. Anybody who goes study in those kind of schools will definitely not be given the postgraduate work permits after they graduate. So the government is trying to cut down on international students. And what is the reason? They said there's a housing crisis, and a lot of people are already complaining that there are no jobs. But the main reason is the housing crisis, in quotes. So this is the thing. In 2022, they had probably about 850,000 Canadian students, international students rather. But then in 2023, according to statistics, the number of international students in Canada has risen to over 1 million, like 1,028,000 international students or so. That is like additional 200,000 of international students coming in. And now, the biggest problem is not just international students are coming in. A large number of them are married, and they are coming in with their spouse and kids. So they have to dish out a lot of visas, and this is actually putting pressure on the housing. Houses or rent is no longer cheap. The cost of living is already high in Canada. And then to get a job, even in a place like McDonald's or Tim Hortons, all those stores, even as a dishwasher, it's now very hard. It takes a lot of people more than 5-6 months to be able to get a job. So now, that being said, the government as well as at November of 2023 had already issued out over 900,000 visas to Ukrainians, although data also says just about 200,000 are already in Canada. So that's like an additional 500,000 plus international students. We don't know the exact number of dependents that the international students brought, but then there are also plenty. So this is putting a whole lot of pressure on the available resources in Canada. So the government is cutting short the number of international students or study visas to about 360,000 for 1 year for the next 2 years. So this means that a lot of people who even have credible admission or they have all the credentials necessary, many people would actually not be able to come to Canada because it's going to be like a quota-based system. And That is it. But now the effect now is that these schools cannot survive without international students. I think I said it on one of my videos that the government cannot fund the schools here. The public schools here cannot be funded by the government. The government says they don't have the money to do that. And then these schools, the only way they can survive to keep on running costs and everything to pay their lecturers is actually for them to increase the number of international students that they bring in every year. And many of these colleges, they just bring in one stupid course just for 1 year because they know their college is postgraduate work permit eligible. You go there, you study for 1 year, you apply for postgraduate work permit, then from there you can get PR. The colleges themselves don't care. Just bring the money. Then again, people who are coming to Canada will now get here, they get a job, they stop going to school. They find a way to change their visa to something else. So everybody, kind of, the government, the schools, students, are in one way not being honest. The government is supposed to fund the school, they are not funding it. The schools now are looking for a way to make more money. Then they bring out shitload of courses that are actually not relevant to the economy of Canada or help anybody in any way, just to bring in a lot of international students so they can make money. Now, when the international students come, they withdraw from the school, they don't pay the school fees anymore. And now the schools are also angry with that the students are also changing and they are not making the money as well. Last year alone, statistics says that international students was able to pay about 23 or 24 billion dollars to Canada. So that's a whole lot of money. And these schools cannot survive without this money that international students are bringing. So for the time being, there's going to be a lot of back and forth between the government and the schools. And over time, we may see a review of these laws that they've made. We can't see exactly when, but there's definitely going to be a review. This new news they brought may not really stand for that long, although the minister has said for the next 2 years. But we don't know if it's going to stay for that long, 2 years long, because I know the schools are going to fight back since the government cannot fund the schools. Just look at that video you watched earlier. So if anybody is asking for my opinion now, I would really advise to explore other ways of coming to Canada. If you have experience from back home, please apply for express entry. There are many ways. Go to the IRCC website. Check every other means by which you can come to Canada. If you are coming, there are other provinces like the Atlantic provinces, the 4 provinces that are there. If you study for 2 years there, after 6 months, instead of applying for the postgraduate work permits that most people always want to apply for, you can apply directly for PR. Even in Ontario, it's the same way. You study for 1 year, you can apply directly for PR. Forget about the postgraduate work permit. Then, if you actually want to have a higher chance of coming to Canada, I think you need to start all those provinces that are so popular, like the British Columbia and Ontario, I think Quebec as well, those 3 provinces, try and avoid them. Those provinces that people don't really want to go there. Those provinces are the ones looking for people. Go there, they will be able to get you your attestation letter. The federal government would also approve of your visa. That's what I feel. Looking at the way things are right now, because a lot of visa refusals will be coming and a lot of people will be heartbroken. So to also minimize the risk, I would also advise you not to put all your eggs in one basket. Try other countries, and as much as possible, avoid the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Those 5 countries, they share information. So if one of these countries refuses you a visa, you may not get a visa in any of the others. So try other countries, try Germany, try Sweden, try Norway, many of those other European countries. You can also try there. If you are fortunate, you get a visa, and you can also start your life from there. But if you are hell-bent on Canada, if you are married right now, I actually don't know. I don't know any advice I really want to give to you, except you are coming from a master's or PhD program. Yes. And for those who are actually single, I don't know how you want to do it, because studying in Canada is very expensive. International students pay times 3 the amount of money that Canadians are paying And even Canadians themselves cannot pay the amount of money they are supposed to pay. They rely on loans to pay their school fees. So it's tough. It's tough to pay school fees here in Canada. So if you are coming as a single person, if it's possible for you to come for a degree, go for it. If you know you already have your HND from back home in Nigeria, wherever it is, you can apply for masters directly to Canada. And if you are being fortunate, you also get the admission. So things are actually not going to be easy for the time being. And then spelling this out to you as the truth. I'm not mincing any words. And this basically is what it is right now. But let's be hopeful that over the next couple of months, there will probably be certain adjustments that would make it easier for people to be able to move to Canada if they really, really want to move to Canada. If Canada is your dream destination, let us be hopeful. By the way, if you've started an application to come to Canada, I'm not saying that you should stop it. Everybody is different. You may be fortunate to get it while others won't. So please continue. See it to the very end. And if you are not giving, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it, except you have money you want to reapply again, or you face somewhere else. So that basically is just my take on this particular matter. It's not going to be an easy ride for the next few months. So in the next couple of videos, which I'll be releasing in like a week or two from now, we'll be talking about other countries in which you can focus on. Since these 5 English-speaking advanced countries have decided to close their door on immigration, then we can focus on those ones as well. So thank you very much. Please stay tuned, like and subscribe, and share this video with others so that they can be well informed before making their decision. I'll see you on the next one.